hardcore bhaktas and hardcore bhaktins, then we can, and depending on how much of a relationship there is, then we can tell each other to our face, Prabhu, there's a blind spot. You need to look at this. And if the relationship is not so developed, or if either the husband or the wife is quite puffed up, then you may have to, Prabhu, may I offer you a suggestion? Generally, this is how I try to deal with devotees. If I see there's something that could be improved in someone, and I don't feel I have enough of a relation, because the scriptures say we should never instruct someone who's not our student, and we should never give good instruction to a fool, because we will simply make them angry at us. So maybe that fool is me. Maybe we can think this way, that maybe I don't receive instructions from the devotees because I'm too puffed up. Like if I'm getting instructions from devotees, that could be a sign that people think, oh, so-and-so Das is or Bhakta so-and-so is actually a humble and sincere devotee, and I can instruct them. But if we are giving off that vibe that, oh, I've been around for a while, who are you to tell me anything? Then we may not find anyone making any suggestions. If we're not receiving suggestions from the other devotees, that's a sign that either the devotees don't have much mercy, or it means they've kind of given up on us because they see that we're too puffed up. That we're not open, we're not receptive. So that's a danger sign. If someone's willing to get on your case and give some advice, then that's a good sign. That's a sign that people see, oh, this is a very sincere devotee, very open and receptive. And if they're like, Hare Krishna Prabhu, and just kind of like, they're diplomatic with us. So the point is, we shouldn't have to go to the temple president if we're having some problem with one another. We should be able to work things out amongst each other. We should be able to go to each other and to each other's face, excuse me, Prabhu, I am not very qualified by myself, but may I offer you a suggestion? And then we're throwing the ball in their court, now it's up to them. How are they going to respond? So Prabhupada, he would chastise people, but then he would say, like Tejas Prabhu told me, he had traveled far across India to bring something or some message to Prabhupada. And he found the cheapest way to do it, and I don't think he traveled like thousands of kilometers. And when he got there, Prabhupada started chatting. So why do you come all this way? You've stopped your service in Delhi, or to come here and tell me this and to do that. This is just, and he probably blasted him for about a half an hour. He was just on his case. And then after that he said, so you must be really tired and hungry after traveling so far. Let's get some prasadam for you. In other words, Prabhupada did what he had to do to rectify the devotee, but it was totally out of love. But we should not assume that we're on the level of Prabhupada and we can go around blasting each other. Because there may be false ego mixed in. We may want to lord it over that devotee. Our intentions may not be completely pure. They may be partially pure. So, anyway, Prahlad Maharaj was trained in diplomacy, and I'm just trying to share the point that diplomacy in of itself is not necessarily a bad thing. It's useful. It's certainly useful when we're approaching people. Sometimes we're dealing with police. We're out and they're like, what are you doing out here? Who gave you permission? Oh, thank you for bringing that to my attention, officer. You can play a little dumb, pretend that we're not really... I'm sorry if I've created any disturbance today. We're being diplomatic because we want to be able to come back. We have to see the big picture and the long stretch, the long haul. So diplomacy has its place, but it's not that we should be like diplomatic with one another because we're thinking, oh, if I'm very nice to the pujari, then maybe I'll get a few extra sweets. That's such a bad thing, but I guess you could say, being duplicitous or being diplomatic, it's not following the principle of sato-vrate, being simple, being straightforward in our dealings. So I just wanted to make that point, that diplomacy has its purpose, but it all depends on the intention behind why we are being diplomatic in dealing with one another or in dealing with others. Just like I put something online regarding an issue, one issue in our ISKCON. And the devotee said, "Oh, Gaura, I know why you're saying that, because you're trying to become," what was it, the term you used? Upward mobility. He says, "You're interested in upward mobility in ISKCON," because I was expressing my concern about something. I said, "Upward mobility? I'm not thinking that way." I mean, in one sense, to become a temple president or a GDC, or, taking like a big responsible role in ISKCON, it's like sitting on the hot seat. It's like sitting in the electric chair, because you're damned if you do and you're damned if you don't. Of course you can get the glory also when things are going really well, and if they're not, people can create difficulties in your life. So bhakti paresh anubhavo viraktir anyatra cha. Prabhupada's quoting the 11th canto of the Bhagavatam. This is the symptom of pure devotional service. A pure devotee is interested only in devotional service, not in material affairs. So look that verse up, because it's a very important verse. So bhakti, as everyone knows, means devotion. And paresh anubhava means direct experience of the Supreme Lord. And viraktir means detachment from other things. Devotion, direct perception of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and detachment from other things. These three occur simultaneously for one who has taken shelter of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. In the same way that pleasure, nourishment, and relief from hunger come simultaneously and increasingly with each bite for a person engaged in eating. What a delicious analogy. We know when we're eating prasadam, it's like we're not interested in anything else usually. We're like, yum. I'm honoring Krishna in his prasadam incarnation, and I want to be fully absorbed. Matter of fact, Shastras say, when we're honoring prasadam, there should be no heavy discussion. It should be light-hearted conversation. It should be happy. It should be joyful. Because if you start talking, like some people even start talking about, animal slaughter during prasadam time, if they're not trained, or just something really gross, and it's like, that will affect your ability to digest your meal. We don't want to be in a tamasic state when we're honoring prasadam. We want to be peaceful, and we want to be happy. Matter of fact, there's even prasadam songs. That after Charira Vijijam, Ektina Shanti Pure, Prabhu Amartane. And so I think there's like 5 prasadam songs. And in Silicon Valley, forget what Vaisheshika calls that temple, they also sing these prasadam songs during prasadam. I used to do that actually. Chicago temple. Very nice mood. So so the point being, when one is truly engaged in bhakti, then even though he may be a really handsome guy or a very gorgeous girl, we don't have to look back a second or a third time. We're fixed in our mission. We're absorbed. We're experiencing the bliss. We don't want to deviate ourselves. So that's the effect. That's one way of knowing that we're progressing in our bhakti, when we see that we don't want anything to be an obstacle on our path of progressive devotional service. Like we say, right? What's the last line? Kirtaniya Sadahari. We can always chant the holy name of the Lord if we're more humble than a straw in the street and more tolerant than a tree. But if we're puffed up and we're thinking, hey, you know who I am, and if we're like intolerant of one another, because intolerance is often equated with a lack of forgiveness. then it means that the desire to be honored and the inability to forgive others is more important than chanting Hare Krishna. Right? Because one who's more tall than the tree, more humble than a blade of grass, offering all respects to others and never expecting any in return, such a person can always chant the holy name of the Lord. So turn it around conversely. If we want honor, if we want to be honored, if we're thinking people aren't acknowledging us enough, the point is, if we're always acknowledging one another, then we're not going to have to be looking for honor and distinction. Because Prabhupada said a Vaishnava is someone who is always glorifying the service of another Vaishnava. So imagine, if we're in that mood, Prabhu, I really love that sabji that you cooked today. That was really super. Prabhu, I really like that tune that you sang today in the kirtan. That was great. Prabhu, thank you for being so charitable to me and lending me a gamsha. Thank you for providing me with a pair of socks. Or, there's so many things that we can thank the devotees for, that we can acknowledge them for. But if we don't, then we may find ourselves feeling needy and looking for someone else to give us some affection and to give us some acknowledgement. So that's what Prabhupada defined. A Vaishnava is one who always glorifies the service of another Vaishnava and always sees the serving side of another devotee. So that is the opposite of fault-finding, criticizing, shaming, and blaming. That's how we can protect ourselves from Vaishnava aparad, Guru aparad, is if we're always looking, if we're being that honeybee, looking for the nectar. Otherwise, we're a fly. The fly is always looking for the stool. Oh, but we're doing a great favor for someone if we're finding fault in them, because by finding fault in others, we're absorbing all of their stool. We're absorbing all of their faults. Of course, we're destroying our spiritual life in the process, but we're doing that devotee a great favor. Of course, if it is one's service to criticize another, if one is in that position, and that's kind of dangerous. If one is appointed to be Bhakta leader, to be the Sankirtan leader, to be the temple president, and so forth, to be the head of some department. Because there's a thin line between constructive criticism and helping someone to progress and being envious of them and fault-finding, but thinking that you're actually being merciful and trying to help everyone. So, Krishna consciousness is a razor's edge. So what happens when it does that?
There's a little button.
Oh, okay. Sorry. Anyway, this purport is fantastic. Please read it, 11 to 42. I wanted to read it to everyone, but we still have another 14 pages to go in this purport. So, a pure devotee is interested only in devotional service, not in material affairs. So we've all been conditioned in different ways, to like mundane music, to like sports, TV show, so many things. Matter of fact, one devotee was saying as they were drowning in the Ganga, or about to drown, they were in Mayapur, and they got swept away by a current. And just as they thought they were going under and it was finished, some little jingle, Mr. Clean, Mr. Clean. Some little advertisement from the radio or television came in their head as they were about to die. So, we need to really do this chanting hardcore and reading to clear all the junk out. Anyway, some devotee came in and grabbed the devotee, pulled him back to the shore. But just to point out, how heavily conditioned we are by so much nonsense. So we have to keep scrubbing away. Shravanam, Kirtanam. To execute devotional service, one should always engage in hearing and chanting. So how to do that? Well, Bhaktisiddhanta said even if one can't do their rounds every day, if they're chanting all the time while they're at work or whatever, then you're bound to get your, 64 rounds done or 16 rounds done. I remember with the best book distributors at O'Hare Airport, Pragosh, Manasuta, Divyanga, and Vaisheshika, in between each person, Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Rama. They're just keeping their relationship with Krishna, or they were praying, Krishna, please give me the intelligence to awaken the super soul within their heart so that they're connected and take instruction from you, to take a book. So it was very intense. I don't know any other service that's as intense as book distribution. It requires everything. And that's why you don't see a lot of book distributors out there, because it requires total mind, body, and words absorption. But it gives a taste that no other service gives, because it's the Brihat Mridanga. You know, we all love going on Harinam, chanting and dancing in the streets. But going out on book distribution is another level. It's the bigger Mridanga, because people will get a book, they'll get Prabhupada and Lord Krishna in the form of transcendental literature. That will go in their home, and even if they don't read it, someone else will find it, they'll pick it up, they'll become a devotee. Prabhupada said they're time bombs, tick, 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 ticking on the shelf, and then one day they'll go off. Especially when that guy gets divorced, loses his job, gets sick, the children abandon the family, or, you know, the way the Prabhupada said material world means one shock after the next. That's this material world. One shock after the next. And so therefore these books are there to, as a life preserver, to save people. When in their time of need, they can look at the bookshelf and the Srimad Bhagavatam, brilliant as the sun, is shining out at them. Please pick me up. Prabhupada said if they read even one word, their whole life will become changed. So, to execute devotional service, one should always engage in hearing and chanting about Krishna or Lord Vishnu. So in order to accomplish this, they have these iPods. You know, we can take our iPod into the toilet with us, or our cell phone. We can have it playing there. We can, you know, wherever if we get on the bus or the train, or, you know, or if one's a housewife or they're cleaning the house, I always like playing. I was taught in the Chicago temple, always have kirtan playing when you're cooking in the kitchen, because your consciousness is getting more purified. And you're hearing transcendental sound vibrations, so more purity is going into the food, into the prasadam that you're preparing. So yes, always keep the vibration going. That should be everyone's motto. Keep the vibration going. Shravanam Kirtanam, 24/7. Even some devotees even have like a little repeat button or something. And even do while they're sleeping, Prabhupada, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare. You're hearing all night long. I need to learn about that. I need to get my iPod in shape so I can keep brainwashing myself. So, the process of temple worship, perfect timing, Shri Gaura Ki Jai. The process of temple worship is Archanam. Perfect timing. And how to perform Archana will be explained herein, so we'll be going more into detail on that. One should have complete faith in the words of Krishna, who says that he is the great, well-wishing friend of everyone. Suridam, Sarva Bhutanam, Surit. Prabhupada explains there's different words for friend, right? Like there's Surit, I believe, means a very close friend. But Bandhu is another word for friend, correct? But I don't think it's as intimate as Surit. Surit is supposed to be more close. Yes?
Surit, I don't know.
Yeah. Anyway, I heard Prabhupada sing that on the tape. That there's different words in Sanskrit for the same, for friend, but depending on, like bosom buddy, real close friends, is Surit. So Krishna's Surit Sarvabhutanam. Suridam Sarvabhutanam. So when I was in Vrindavan, Prabhupada was saying at the opening of the Krishna Balaram temple that if you have any problem in life, you go up to Shri Gaura, he was saying specifically, and you say, my dear sir, he said we should address him like this, my dear sir, this is my problem. Kindly help me with this. Please provide me with a solution. I'm struggling with this. I have a problem. I'm placing it at your feet. This is beyond me. I've tried and tried to overcome this difficulty, and it keeps coming back. It keeps haunting me. But only you can remove this. Or I was praying to Lord Nrsingadev in Mayapur. Lord Nrsingadev, whatever it takes, rip it out. Whatever it takes to help me get to the next level. Sock it to me. I'm ready. I'll take it. I might go out screaming and holding on, but you know better. You know what I need in order to get the pure devotional service. Beat me up if you have to. I mean, maybe not literally, but maybe, I don't know. Hopefully it won't have to come to that point. But yeah, Krishna is our best friend. We should remember that. We can pray to Krishna during the day. We can talk to Krishna. Krishna, I'm being challenged. I've got a challenge today. How am I going to deal with this? What have you got to say about this? And try to hear the Super Soul, who's speaking to us 24/7 in our heart. He's talking. I have to remember to keep the volume turned up so that I hear the Lord who's speaking to me all the time, instead of, oh Krishna, you're getting in the way of my sense gratification again. Turn the volume down and listen to my mind and crazy senses. No, I have to keep the volume turned up. Maybe have to keep the iPod volume up a little louder. Or I remember, actually, one thing I loved about cooking the Sunday feast, it was a festival in the kitchen. Because I remember my godmother Gopati, he'd play all these super cool tunes from Dinanath Prabhu, Rick Siraj, different godbrothers from the 70s. And I looked forward to just chopping the sabjis on Sunday, because I knew I'd have a chance to hear all of these really cool Hare Krishna Kirtan tunes. And also, another thing that I did, that I just kind of made it up, but it worked, is in Montreal Temple, we have our prasadam room on the second floor. And so as people first I would go upstairs, as people were finishing their prasadam, and it was a little trick I made. And I'd say, how did you like the feast tonight? Oh, it was really great. Really? You really liked it? Oh yeah, it's really good. Well, imagine if like 250 people came over to your house for dinner. You'd probably really appreciate those friends that stuck around for 10 minutes and helped wash a few dishes or swept the floor a bit, right? Instead of like, thanks a lot for the food, see you next feast. When you cook the next feast, make sure you give me a call. No, we'd really appreciate the people who stuck around to help clean, right? Yeah, that's true. Well, would you mind coming into the kitchen for just 10 minutes? Of course, my plan was if I got them in for 10 minutes, probably a good chance I'd have them for a half an hour or 45 minutes. But just 10 minutes. Like anyone can do 10 minutes, right? And I'd have a good tape recorder there, and I'd get some good tunes, and I'd turn the cleanup into a party. I can't remember, it's a Huckleberry Finn or Tom Sawyer. He was painting, this is American, so I'm not sure you would know, unless you read American literature. But he was painting a fence. And he was showing that he was so enthusiastically painting the fence that anyone who would come by were like, oh wow, I think I want to do that too. Can I also paint the fence? Yeah. So he got the whole fence painted by everyone else's help because of his own enthusiasm. Because enthusiasm is contagious, as Prabhupada expressed by watching that Charlie Chaplin movie. Prabhupada liked Charlie Chaplin movies. And as you may have heard, Charlie Chaplin, it was one of those movies from the 1920s. They were silent. And so people were out doing the Charleston and the jitterbug or whatever dances they were doing at the ball dance. And they were all dressed in tuxedos. And the ladies were all dressed in fine gowns. And so someone played a joke on Charlie Chaplin. He put some glue on his seat. So he sat down, and when he was trying to get up, he couldn't get up. So he got up, and it made a rip up. Because in the tuxedos in those times, they had what were called tails, a long tail behind it. And so it made a rip. So he went and looked in the bathroom, and he saw that it was a rip. And then he thought to himself for a moment, okay, I'll just rip it all the way up the back. So he put the rip all the way up to his neck. So the tails in the tuxedo were sort of like flying like wings. Like it became a new style. And he got his partner, and he started dancing on the dance floor. And everyone was like looking at him like, wow, this must be like the latest fad, you know? And so they started ripping their tuxedos up the back, and they started doing the same dance style as Charlie Chaplin was doing. So Prabhupada was saying that enthusiasm is contagious. So, yeah, I mean, we can find the ways and means by which to engage people in devotional service. I mean, we shouldn't just expect Lalita Prabhu is going to manage everything. No, we should bring things to the point where Lalita Prabhu has nothing to do except go into the universities with his book on rethinking Dharma and approaching all the scholars. Because I'm not going to do that. I'm not a big scholar, and I don't think too many of you are. I mean, all due respect. Maybe you are. If you are, then you should be taking his book and going and meeting the professors. If that's your inclination, if that's your ability. But that's his book. It's a very powerful book. It's a very important book. But how can he have time to go and preach if he's got to be thinking about how to run the temple? So let's free up Lalita Prabhu so that he can do what Prabhupada said is the most important preaching to the scientists. He stated that. There's no preaching more important than preaching to the scientists. So let's see what we can do. We can go to Lalita Prabhu, we can ask him, Prabhu, is there anything more I can do to free you up so that you can preach more? So, a devotee considers Krishna the only friend. And of course, anyone who is Krishna conscious is also our friend as well. But Krishna is not going to divorce us. Krishna is not going to fall down. Krishna is not going to, turn on us. So this is called Sakyam. Pungsarpita Vishnu. The word Pungsha means by all living entities. There are no distinctions permitting only a man or only a Brahmin to offer devotional service to the Lord. Sometimes people in India, they think like this. Oh, it's very nice, you're interested in Vaishnavism. In your next life, maybe you'll take birth in a Hindu family if you're lucky. No, Prabhupada never. This is bogus. This is the mentality of the Smarta Brahmins. This is not our philosophy. Everyone can do so. Everyone can engage in devotional service to the Lord, as confirmed in Bhagavad Gita 9:32. Striyo Vaishyas Tata Sudras Tepi Yanti Param Gatim. Although one may be a woman, a Vaishya, or a Sudra, although they're all considered less intelligent. But women should not be offended by this, because Kalo Sudra Sambhava. In Kali Yuga, everyone is born a Sudra. So basically, this verse is talking about everybody in Kali Yuga, not just women, but it says Vaishyas and Sudras as well. Even though they're less intelligent, they also can become devotees and return back home, back to Godhead. So I was walking with Amoghadrik Prabhu the other day through the neighborhood, and I was saying, is this a low class, high class, or a middle class neighborhood? And he was saying, this is like a middle class neighborhood. But on reflecting on this verse, in devotional service, we make no distinctions between these different classes. Because basically everyone is lower than a Chandala. A Chandala is a dog eater, and they're considered to be like the lowest. But people are cow eaters. So they don't, they're not even considered to be the lowest. They're like lower than the lowest. And we've been them also. So these divisions are only existing in terms of material conception. Sudras are ruled by ignorance, Vaishyas are ruled by passion and ignorance, Kshatriyas are ruled by a combination of passion and sattva, and Brahmins are primarily influenced by goodness. Anyway, we've run out of time. Does anyone have any comments or any questions on today's verse? Yes?